Anthony Ruggiero is with us tonight. He served nearly 2 decades in government for both Republican and Democratic administrations. He's now a senior fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Anthony, you were the National Security Council Director for North Korea. Important job. Are you worried about the ICBM test potentially with President Biden nearby?
Well, it could be. Thanks for having me. It could be an ICBM test. It could be a nuclear test. Their seventh, and their first since 2017. And I think for Kim, the thing here is that he likes the status quo. There's really no pressure to speak of. There's no real sanctions on him, and he's fine where he is. Now he has a COVID pandemic that he has to deal with, but that's, for the most part, that's really not going to affect him. So at some point, Biden needs to make him feel a little more uncomfortable.
Do I hear you saying you're not that worried?
Yeah, I'm not too worried in the sense that, they've done the test before, but it does show the problem that we've had with this policy, which is that, sanctions have been inadequate and infrequent, and North Korea is not responding. They're not picking up the phone. So let's move back to the pressure campaign. We know that works.
Okay. Looking more broadly with all of this, what can President Biden do at this point to counter the heft and the power accumulated by China that's really growing in the region if he is serious about checking their ascendance?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think a lot of these allies that he's meeting with, he's going to meet with South Korea, he's going to meet with Japan, he's going to meet with the Quad, which also includes, India and Australia. I think they're looking for guidance, not guidance from Biden, but just understand from Biden how he sees the U.S.-China relationship. It's not something that Biden has really talked about as president. So I think the first thing is they'll be interested to hear from him directly. And then for Biden, I think that these allies want the United States in the region. They want us here, and they see us really bogged down in Europe, understandably so, but they want to hear from Biden directly that we will remain engaged and that we're in the region to stay.
Do you get the sense that Joe Biden is as urgently worried about China and its plans for the world, really, as someone like a Donald Trump was?
Well, I think, 6 months ago, I think Biden wanted to be focused on China. Of course, Vladimir Putin changed that calculus for him. Sure. I think the piece that we need to give Biden credit for is he could have done these meetings back in Washington again. He could have very easily said, well, you know what, I'm focused on Ukraine. I can't go to Asia, but he's going to Asia. He's bringing a big delegation with him focused on domestic politics with regard to, the semiconductor issue and other issues. So I give him credit for that. The question is, and a lot of these, allies in Asia asked the question, Obama did the infamous pivot to Asia, and that really wasn't much of a pivot. So is this all for just show, or is there going to be real substance in the meetings and then afterwards as they focus on Ukraine?
The Indo-Pacific economic framework. It isn't free trade, first of all, as we know. That's pretty unpopular these days if either party says it. But Bloomberg says it covers, quote, clean energy, supply chain resilience, decarbonization and infrastructure, and taxation and anti-corruption. Realistically speaking, is the U.S. going to lasso power back from Beijing with decarbonization?
Well, I think a lot of these allies are playing both sides, so to speak, right? They have their relationship with China, and they have a relationship with the United States. This is the framework is the way the Biden team wants to go forward with it. But it's another area where there's not a lot of meat on the bones here. There's not a lot of details coming out. This is the perfect time to really describe what is included in this framework. But a lot of these countries are not going to choose between the two countries because they're kind of stuck in the middle. The real question here is when we need them, either for a type of vote or to oppose China on something, will they be there? And that, I think that's the point of his visit to Japan and South Korea.
Not a lot of meat on the bone. Can I put that another way? It sounds like, I don't know, a kid with divorced parents that they want to go over to dad's house because he has good cable TV, but they still want to live with mom because she gets him to soccer practice, that they're really not going to cleave from China.
Well, the United States is a Pacific power, but we're not located in Asia. China is. We're really, we spent how many decades with really, frankly, the wrong China policy, and we're trying to correct that. Now there's a bipartisan consensus to correct that, and now we're being, the United States and Biden administration is being pulled in a bunch of different directions. I think these allies have heard some of these stories before. They really want to see us committed to this. Biden's trip is a first step in that, but how many more cabinet members go out after this trip? How many times do we hear a China speech from senior officials? I mean, are we going to see congressional trips, more congressional trips? I think that's the way we can show our commitment to the region.
Okay. To get some of these potential strong allies on board, this is more of a first date than a marriage. Got it. Anthony
It's a good
Ruggiero.
first step, yeah.
Okay. Anthony Ruggiero, thank you for your insight.
Thank you.